Hello and welcome back to this tutorial on modeling a old school sailing ship in Maya. Last we left off, we were blocking out the base of the hull, the bottom half, and we left that in a pretty good place, but there's a few more things, I think, looking at it now that we need to go and actually improve. One of them being the bottom part here, where the keel will be. I also think we can improve the shape here a little. Also, the shape here, while it might be lining up with the back, is actually incorrect. The back of the ship should actually be curving up here, and similarly to how we have it at the front here, where it comes in and is a bit more flat as opposed to curved, this should also quite similarly come in and actually at more of an extreme angle at the back, if you look at your reference images. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is, we did have this flat area down here for the keel, but I'm thinking what we'll do is we'll just add that in afterwards. We'll probably just duplicate this when we're ready and then bevel the middle to add that shape. So for the time being, I'm actually just going to go ahead and take all of these vertices and merge them to the center of the middle here. So I'm just going to hold down Shift, right click, go to Merge Vertices, and then go to the Target Weld tool. What that's going to allow us to do is, if I just hold down left click on this vertex and then drag it over to the one over there, it's going to weld that to that one, right? And then that will remove that for us. And then I'm just going to do that for the rest. This edge here, I think probably what I'll do is I'll add an extra vertice just in there with the multi-cut tool. And then we'll come back to our target weld tool and we'll just do that like so. And then what we can do is, actually what you can do as well is you can do this, you can edge weld, you can merge to one vertice with multiple at the same time using that tool. So if I select these two vertices and then go to merge those in, then it will do both at the same time. So I can even do it with all three and just like that. And then we will pretty much just go through and do this for the rest of the vertices. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just pause the recording while we do this, if you go ahead and do that on yours. Okay, so as we come to the back of the hull, there's an edge here actually that we couldn't just remove because it goes all the way around and loops around to the front, and we need this edge here. So what we're going to do is just going to go into face select mode, and then we're just going to select all of these edges on top, or faces on top, sorry. To just quickly select these, we can shift click one and double shift left click on the back face there, and it will just automatically select that entire edge or the entire string of faces. And then we'll just go ahead and delete those because we don't need those right now. And the top part of the hull will just build off of this. And then what that will allow us to do is we can now go ahead and merge the rest of these vertices in, like so. And then we can safely delete this edge without worrying about removing our edges at the front. And now it's just cleaned up our shape a little bit. It looks like we have an extra vertex here that we don't need. Sometimes if you're not sure whether or not all your vertices have been merged, if you just press 3 on your keyboard, that's going to take you into smooth preview. You can see here we've got something weird going on, and if we go into vertex selection mode, we can tell it's because there's one sitting on top of the other. So if I just go ahead and left mouse click, drag over those, hold down shift, go to merge vertices, and then merge vertices to center, what it's going to do is it's just going to combine those two. So now when we smooth, it's not pinching anymore. Okay, so what we're going to do next is, I think we need to refine this shape a little more. This could be a bit flatter and a bit more pronounced. And also at the back here, this needs to be refined too, because like I was saying, the back of the ship also comes in a little bit. The hull isn't just perfectly flat on the back like this, right? It kind of curves in quite drastically to where the rudder is. If I pull up some reference here, you can see this is of the HMS Victory, that the shape like quite drastically comes in, and especially towards the bottom it forms the shape of the rudder, and then it curves up here to meet the top portion of the hull. So what we'll do is, I'm just going to go ahead and add an extra edge in there, and I think also, actually before we do that, I'm going to add an extra edge here just to give us a bit more shape there. And I'm just going to select these and just smooth the edge flow, just like we were doing in the last episode, just to even out the spacing a bit more there. Okay, it looks like that vertex is a bit in the wrong place, so that's okay. Because the topology is still quite low, we can very easily just fix things like this. And it's not that big of a deal. Let's pull these in a bit more. Like so. And it's really important to spend a lot of time on this stage, so we'll probably do a few episodes in getting this right. And then don't be afraid to just use edit edge flow every now and then just to even things out. Oh, that one's not quite working. Occasionally if something like that happens, it's normally when you're getting towards the edge, the front of the ship. In that case, if you just go ahead and put a holding edge, then it will let you do it, no problem. I think this one here will have to let come out as wide as it is. Probably just because it's holding the shape for us at the front. Alright, so once we've edited the edge flow a bit of our model, if the back of your ship is looking a little bit like this, don't worry, that can happen from time to time. All you need to do is just select all the vertices, go to, double click on the translate tool settings, and then go to edit pivot. Just put it on one of the faces that is still aligned. Press R on the keyboard just to go to scale, and then just scale it down, and it will flatten it out there to that face. So that should leave you with something like this. What we're going to start doing now that we've got the shape here a little bit more even, a little bit more flat, is that we're going to start adjusting the shape at the back of the ship here. So looking at your reference here, this is going to be very, very important to make sure that we get this right, because this part really, really is quite important. So I think what we're going to do is just start pulling some of these edges in towards the center. Like so. And this can take a bit of trial and error, because this is quite a complicated model to make, to be honest. And even in the time that I've been working in 3D, I still struggle with models like this. So, you know, if you're having a hard time, don't be too hard on yourself. Because even though I've been doing this for quite a while, I still struggle with this as well, right? It's very difficult. Very, very difficult model to make, especially with a shape like this at the bottom of the ship. This is like no easy feat to make this look good and accurate, right? Like, we can only do so much and look at the reference. What can be really, really useful is if you have like a model of the ship that you're trying to make with you in person, or at least something similar, because then you can really kind of like, you can feel it, right? You can touch the model itself and you can see the lines that things are taking and where they're supposed to be going, right? I would say we kind of want the edge flow to be following the shape of the ship, because the hull kind of takes this shape where it comes like almost like an arch kind of shape, like an inverted arch. So we just want to make sure that the edges are also kind of going in that shape. And it will just make it easier when it comes to adding details later, if everything's kind of flowing nicely in the right direction. And don't worry if this is really taking you a long time, because it's going to take me a long time. Okay. Okay, that's kind of getting there, but I think we're still going to need to pull these in even more, probably. Don't worry if any of this is like getting a bit overwhelming. You might be like, oh, all my vertices are all over the place. You know, it's very, very easy to fix at this stage, and that's why we're keeping it so simple. Like, I've definitely been there where I try and go make the topology a bit too high, a bit too fast. And then when you start doing stuff like this, it's like, well, I now have 2 million edges to select, and it's like, well, I can't really do anything about this now, and you have to restart, and it's just a pain in the butt. So definitely try and keep it about as low as I am. Trying to make sure that these curves are consistent, nothing's too flat. Something that's good to do as well is just keep changing your camera angle whenever you're doing these things, because it might look correct from one angle, but then when you look at a different angle, it's like, oh, actually, that's not quite right. And what can help us here as well, every now and then, once you've made a few changes, you could just go ahead and use an edit edge flow again. And don't worry if you're smooth previewing and this is rounding off, that's going to happen. We can fix that later. Okay, I think I want these to be pulled up even more. And that's kind of the great thing about subdivision modeling. We had a comment recently saying that subdivision modeling isn't really used as much anymore, and that's certainly not true. From film and TV to games, subdivision modeling is the kind of de facto way to do things. You don't necessarily have to if you're working on personal projects. But one of the main reasons you want to use subdivision modeling is something like this, because you don't have to work at the subdivision level you're going to render at, and you can create a simpler shape and then smooth it into the shape that you want just by adjusting the shape or the position of the vertices, rather than doing, you know, if I was to go ahead and smooth this up to something like this, right, you could say, oh, we're not subdivision modeling anymore, but, you know, try and edit these vertices without it looking lumpy. So it's just not going to work. Okay. And I am doing this to reference, by the way. If some of you aren't, I would definitely recommend looking at reference of a ship while you're doing this. Okay, I think what we'll do is pull this in even more. I still think this needs to come in even more. It's kind of, when I do this, I like to sort of take baby steps. Not make too big a change all at once. Just because then it helps you like gradually build up to something. And I think it's always much easier to add on to something rather than reduce if you go a bit too far, if you know what I mean. Alright, so we are gonna keep altering these. Just throwing in a few. What I might do from time to time as well is I'll come into scale mode and I'm just gonna scale these so that they become straight. Okay, so you want some of these to follow the shape of the hole, but not every single one. I think as we come into the center, like here, I think I would like these to be a bit straighter. But then as we come out to more of the extreme ends, then I think it's okay for them to adjust a bit. I mean, this is just about trying to make the model as clean as possible. What I might do here is just put in a protecting edge. Just scale that a bit. Or, sorry, not scale that. Add edge flow. And our shape is looking pretty smooth here. There's a bit of an oddity here, but it's not too bad. We can go ahead and fix that later. I think I did say it right at the beginning that we might be able to get to the top portion of the hole today. Potentially not at this point, unfortunately. This is... Perhaps I could have picked an easier model, but I know there are definitely no... at least not from what I've seen. I haven't dug too much. There aren't really any tutorials out there on making something like this. I know when I did my first one a couple years ago, I really kind of had to just figure out how to do it myself. And it was very, very hard. So I'm hoping this will at least help you somewhat. And I could, you know, go ahead and speed all of this footage up, or cut to when this is done. And I'm sure many of you would probably appreciate me doing that to speed up the process. But I think for this tutorial, I'd prefer not to. I'd rather just do it in real time. And if that means occasionally not, you know, having too much to say while I'm doing this, I think so be it. Just because I'd rather the tutorial be as helpful as possible for people that need it, so you can see exactly what I'm doing. And if you want to go ahead and, you know, you feel like you've got the gist of things, you have a shape and a ship or a model that you want to make, and you're feeling comfortable with it, then by all means, speed up and go ahead. But for this, I think I'm just going to take my time with this. And for those of you that want to follow along, that's also great too. Just do a bit more edge flow. So you can see what I'm doing is it's kind of like an iterative process. It's like move some of the vertices a bit, edit edge flow, and kind of repeat really. I might occasionally mess up the back here, but that's okay, we can just fix that. Just do what we did last time. Select all of those, match it to the pivot point, just press it back. Oh. It's okay if this doesn't match up 100%. Right now, that's okay. Because we're going to go ahead and make edits to this anyway. So, don't worry too much. In fact, for the time being, I think what I might do is just delete these faces because they're not really contributing anything. And I think it's just going to make our lives harder. And again, if you're wondering why I'm just adding these edges every now and then removing them afterwards, it's just so that we can edit the edge flow without having to worry about the shape changing too much. Okay, I'm just going to pull those in so they're a bit more flat. We want this edge here to be straight, just because when it comes to making the keel, this area will have to be straight. Okay, that's starting to take on a much nicer shape already. I think we tweak this a little bit more and we'll probably be there. But you can see, right, we have this nice round section here. And then it flattens out a bit towards the front. We could maybe increase that more as well. But it's also flattening out quite nicely here at the back too. I think I'll pull some of these out some. Okay, like so. And don't worry if your edge flow keeps pushing vertices out like this. Just bring them back in. It's okay. Okay. So you can see if we look at our side view now, just kind of unintentionally, and it's not so much happening up here because we need these vertices here. I'm just going to pull these down to match our... these are probably moved from the edit edge flow, so I'm just going to pull those out to match the blueprint again. But you can see our edges now, because we're just obviously we've built this to the blueprints, but we're looking at reference as well to make sure the shape's correct. You can see our edges are following the flow of the individual planks, right? They're kind of coming up in this swooshing like arc motion, and that's exactly what we want, right? Because that's how they would build these things in real life. These planks would be shaped like this. And then we also have these nice sort of dips in here to follow the structure of the hull, while still having this curvature, which, you know, adds like to buoyancy and stuff like that. I think what we can do, just to sort of get a better idea of what this looks like, is I'm just going to come to the top view. I'm going to hold down right click, go to vertex, sorry. Select all the central ones, just make sure I have that correct. Then I'm just going to scale that in X, just to make sure it's flat. And then I'm going to hold down X and just go back to translate mode, sorry, with W. Hold down X and just move that to the center of the grid, just to make sure that's nice and centered. And then going to go to modify and then freeze transformations and modify reset transformations. That's going to move the pivot point of the whole object back to the center of the grid. I'm just going to press Control D to duplicate. Then in X, I'm just going to put that to -1. What that's going to do is just duplicate our model. Then just going to go to modify and then freeze transformations just to have that frozen. And then what you can see now is we have the entire shape of our hull. If I smooth preview that, we're going to have this sharp line down the middle, right? That's where our keel is going to be, and obviously this isn't merged, so it's going to have kind of a sharp, unnatural edge to it. But you can see now, we have the shape of our hull. With this nice, like, flat part here, and it's really, really starting to look like the bottom of a ship, right? Like, you think this started from a cube, but now look at it. Right? That's pretty much it. That's the shape. And we have to do quite a bit more back here to make sure that, because this doesn't just lie perfectly flat like this, right? Like if I pull up some reference quickly from one of my... Okay, so you can see we have this shape here where it's coming back, right? But on ours, it's kind of just sticking flat, right? Like it's almost coming up to here and then we'll just have this sharp cut-off edge. So we need it to actually curve up around here, and that part can be a little bit tricky. So I think what we'll do is we'll probably model that in a little bit. We'll maybe extrude these edges up here, just add that curve. Because you can see here, like the hull extends up more, right? And maybe that means adding an extra loop in and adding some more curvature here. But that's not too bad, right? We've kind of really tackled the meat of it now. This is nearly done. And then after that, what we can do is we can start adding the top portion of the hull. Honestly, I would say, while this is a difficult model to make, I think once you have the bottom shape of this hull, the rest of it's really not that bad. Like, looking at it, there's quite a lot of detail, but really what I found in making these models is that this bottom shape of the hull, honestly, is the most complicated piece to make. Everything else just kind of falls into place, because all it's going to do is it's just going to extrude off of the top of this shape, right? If we look from the top, that's the top shape of our ship. And everything else just builds off on top of that. So the bottom part of the hull is the most crucial part to get right. Everything else just follows suit, so long as you match the shape of this, and the blueprints as well. Looking from the front, I can see that the shape of our ship in the middle isn't quite matching. I think probably what's happening is that the middle portion here is maybe too flat. So what we'll do is we will delete our duplicate. I may have deleted the wrong side. No, that's okay. We'll delete our duplicate, and then what we're going to do is I am just going to... I think what we might do, actually, is use a tool we haven't used yet. I'm going to come up to Deform with our object selected. Then I'm going to go to Lattice. Now, lattices are really cool tools because you can increase the number of divisions here. By default, it's 2, 5, 2 in various different axes. But what I can do here is if I go and hold down right-click, instead of vertices, we've got lattice points. Now, what these allow us to do is, instead of actually editing the individual vertices, edges, faces of our mesh, we can just select a lattice point, and that allows us to kind of soft modify the entire mesh. And oftentimes you'll get a much cleaner result than, you know, say selecting this and pressing B and going to smooth mesh and doing stuff like that. And then we can get even finer, more granular control by adding extra divisions, right, in the axes of this lattice. And then by doing that, we can add enough divisions to the point where we can just select the lattice points that we want to edit a particular point of our model, and then much more easily modify the shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an extra loop down the middle, like this. Okay, because we can see here that the shape isn't quite matching there. I'm then going to add a couple extra here, maybe 4, because we don't really want to be changing the shape at the back. We're quite happy with that. I think it's more the central part here. So I'm going to go to lattice points, and I'm going to select these 2, come back to this view, and then just pull those down gently. Pull that down slightly more. And then I can also see that, let's go ahead and look at that. Okay, that's maybe done a little more than I wanted. I'm gonna, I think, add another division there. Actually, we'll add 2 more. I'm going to increase that up to 6. And then just going to select these instead. Just pull that down. Because we want to maintain this flat portion here. Okay, so that's now matching quite a bit better. And then we have the more round bit on the bottom of the ship now. And then I'm going to add another lattice. I'm keeping the smooth preview on as well, just because that's going to give us a closer look into what the actual flow of the edge will be. You know, if I press 1, it's a bit more like faceted. But with smooth preview on, it follows the shape a lot better. And that's what it looks like once we actually smooth the thing. I'm then going to add another lattice, because you can see here this portion of the ship is actually coming out a little bit too far. To edit that, once you've started moving points of a lattice, you actually can't add any more divisions. So we need to make a brand new one once we've finished with that. By default, it will have 5, and I think I'm going to increase that to 6, just so we have an edge, a lattice division, just going kind of in the center of where that excess material, excess shape is. I'm then going to add a few divisions in U, just so that we can get that to be edited in the right place. Okay, and then going to select these. Not every single one, because we don't want to go right to the back of the ship, just sort of the front ones. I'm then gonna press B. You can even do soft select while you're doing lattice, and I'm just gonna add a little bit of soft select just to increase that range there. If you hold down B on the keyboard and then middle mouse drag, you can see that's gonna increase the area of influence. We just want a little bit, just so there's some overlap, but nothing too crazy. And then we're just gonna gently pull that in, like so. And then we could even, as well, I think it's quite good sometimes, just to ease these a bit, so it's not as sharp of a difference. Like so. Okay, and you can see that hasn't made too much of a difference in our 3D viewport. Looking at the ship, it does look very much sort of the same. I think what we might do actually is just coming back to the lattice here. Can undo that. I think I will pull these in as well. Because I can see here we've got a part bulging out here, which shouldn't be probably. So I'm just going to pull that in. Make sure that lines up. There we go. And then just edit airflow. Do that a couple times, just to make sure, just to iron out any of the kinks. Okay, there we go. Now, if we look at our blueprints, you can see that the shape is largely matching. We'll come back to the side view. You can see it's following the curve absolutely perfectly. We've got a little bit to pull forward here. We'll just come into the smooth preview. Pull those forward again. But you can see it's quite nicely following that line. We just need to make the keel and then do the edits on the back. This particular part of this series has taken a bit longer than I had expected, but I think it's good to take your time and get this to be as correct as possible and as accurate as possible. So I would encourage you to go away from this video and just get this to be as accurate to the reference as you can and as accurate as to the blueprints as you can. Keep it this sort of level of topology. I wouldn't go any higher than this whatsoever. I probably wouldn't really go any lower than this either, because I think by that point you're going to kind of struggle to get the shape. We're going to subdivide this at some point because we're going to need more edges. But I hope you are enjoying this tutorial. Apologies for the slow progress, but I don't want to rush this too much. We want to make sure that we get this right first time and for the tutorial as well, so that everyone can follow along. If you have any questions at all, or if you want to show your progress to us, please do just let us know. We always answer every single comment. You can email us. Our email will be in the description if you have any work you want to show us. If you want to show us your progress, absolutely, we'd love to. We could even make an extra video on any questions that you guys have, if there's any good ones. And yeah, I hope you're enjoying this. I'm going to really try to get another part out sooner if I can, so we can get some progress moving for this. But yeah, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next part.